Big NLL weekend, and we appreciate Steven Stamp joining us. Lacrosse Insider joining us to preview it. And hey, man, last weekend, Steven, you nailed it. Of all those big games, you said the game of the weekend was the one at SaskTel Center between the Rush and the Colorado Mammoth. I was there. I went to overtime. Did you get a chance and it was on TSN. Did you get a chance to watch much of that?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. It was quite a game. Honestly, I mean, Colorado probably kind of lucky to be in it and get to overtime, right? I mean, they give up. Saskatchewan gets 72 shots. Dylan Ward with 62 saves. He was amazing. I thought the Rush played really well, and such a critical win for them that they're fortunate to have come out of it as well. But Robert Church, right, with his 5 goals, including that overtime winner, what a player.
Yeah, and Eric Penny, I think it was 37 saves he made in his Rush debut. Do you think that he will not relinquish the crease the rest of the way for Saskatchewan, or is it a one-game-at-a-time thing, do you think, for them?
It's a tough one. I mean, it's always kind of one game at a time, but on the other hand, I mean, I had Chris Corbeil on the Lacrosse League this week, and he talked about, hey, we were treating that as a playoff game. They can't afford to lose games, having lost 6 already. So you kind of need to run with them, I think. I know they have confidence and shoot, but the reality is Penny came in, played very well. He played great for Philadelphia in his other start. I think you've got to ride him, certainly for now, and hope to get a few more wins. A few more wins in the tank, especially you're going to play in San Diego and things. They've got some, I know PCLC coming up, but there's some big games coming up for them, and I think you've got to go with the guy that you just brought in to do that job.
I will say just one funny story. I was enjoying the game from a luxury suite with Paul Drouin and his staff at IKS. They're the crew that put the brand new scoreboard in SaskTel Center, and I think it was the third quarter, Stephen, they over the public address system, welcomed Eric Penny. It's like, hey, Rush Nation, give a big welcome to Eric Penny. And I thought, well, the least he could do is give a wave. And he just leaned on the crossbar like this. And I'm like, at least he could wave. And somebody said, well, he's focused, Rod. He's not listening to the public address. And I'm thinking, that's probably it. And I think that's the reason I'm sitting here behind a microphone, because I was always guilty looking in the crowd or listening. You know what I mean? But it was a fantastic game, and I was... for all these teams, have you noticed a switch in urgency, Stephen? Just for the Rush, because they're my team. They went from there's still time to must-win game time. Just like that. Is there other teams in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. You look at the West, and there's a certain amount of that, but you look at the East, and it gets really interesting, right? Because there's so many teams battling for 4 guaranteed spots, and you think, okay, well, there's still time to make it. There's a big pack in the middle. But I look at somebody like Albany, who just had a huge win over San Diego, and they have a juggernaut of a lineup coming up in terms of who they're playing. They have some really tough games. And, you can't afford to go and lose 2 or 3 games. And especially, I think one of the big things that is really pushing that this year is, there's hardly any crossover games. Every team is only playing either 2 or 3 games against the other division. Other than that, it's all within the division. And that just gives extra importance to every game that you play, because you lose a game, you're not just losing that game, you're giving the other team that you're battling for a playoff spot with a win.
Stamper, you knew that I was going to ask your featured game of the weekend. And for our viewers all over North America, watching on Game Plus and YouTube, these are the weekend games in the NLL. Tonight, Rochester at Georgia. Calgary Roughnecks are at San Diego. Saturday, Vancouver's at Halifax. New York Riptide at the Toronto Rock. Buffalo at Albany. And Saskatchewan at Panther City, which is Fort Worth. There's a nugget in there for you, eh, Stamper? Tell us which one.
I mean, the one that kind of stands out to me, and it might be a little strange when you look at the records, but the Riptide going to Toronto to Hamilton for a rematch with the Rock after beating them last week. It was New York's first home win. It's a huge win to get a win over a contending team. And, they're going to go back in. I'm very curious to see, does Nick Rose turn it around? I mean, goalies will have bad games, and Nick Rose had a bad game. He gave up more goals than he made saves. That's going to happen once in a while. I don't think that will happen again. So New York can't win that way. They're going to have to come in and do something a little different and play a little better than they did even in the win. But do they have more confidence having pulled out that win? Because, they've lost 3 overtime games. They've been so close so many times and let it slip away. Does getting that one, does that push them over the edge? Because they're not far off, for the most part, being competitive.
How has the move from Toronto to Hamilton gone for the Toronto Rock in terms of attendance and the fact that they've still kept the name? You're in Ontario, so you'd be closer to it than me. How's that move gone?
Well, I mean, I think the move from how they've handled it has gone fine. They couldn't have fans for some of the games, so the attendance was zero, right? So I think that's a tough way to go into a new arena, is to not be able to have fans. I called one game down there with Brian Shanahan. We go down, and it's pretty strange when you don't have fans there. So we're just opening up now in Ontario. So I think we're going to know a lot better coming forward, because this is the first time they can really start to put some people in there. So we'll see how that works with Ontario changing a lot of regulations.
I got to ask you this. We're looking ahead with the NLL and the sport of lacrosse in general. How do you think the addition of the Las Vegas market is going to impact the NLL?
I think, people are really excited about it, right? There's been a lot of enthusiasm. I think, I don't know how much difference it makes now in terms of the alignment with sports betting and how commonplace it has become. I don't know if Las Vegas is as much of an impact as it used to be in sports, right? Because there were always questions about, can you have a team in Las Vegas where they have legalized betting, with all the concerns that people used to have about aligning sports betting or gambling with leagues. So I think maybe less of a broad impact, but seems like a pretty happening market. Folks are excited. Now players are excited, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see, like, how do they take off, and then where do we go next? What's the next team, right? It's got to be out west, I would think, because you've got, you want to keep balancing off the divisions. But to me, the interesting thing, like Las Vegas, we all knew was coming, I think, ahead of time. We all heard, hey, Las Vegas is going to be here. Here's kind of how it's going to happen. I have not heard a lot lately about exactly where it's going to go. I've heard bits and pieces here and there. I don't see anything as solid as what we'd heard about some of the previous expansions coming. And I don't think it's going to happen in the next year. I think we might be waiting for the season after this.
Interesting. Well, the ownership can't hurt. Wayne Gretzky, Dustin Johnson,
Right.
of course, and Steve Nash in Las Vegas. So if I could throw some markets out, I'd like to see a team in South Florida. I think it would go over huge there. I think it would go over huge in Phoenix. And Winnipeg, I think they keep talking about it every day. They would love it. So the good news is people want the league's growing, the sport is growing, and it's good. What's anything else, Stamper, before we let you go for the week?
No, I think the big thing is that we're past the halfway mark, right? We turned the corner. The halfway mark was on this past weekend, which, like you said, just ramps up the intensity for everybody. And to me, it's going to be so interesting watching some of the teams that started slowly to see if they can start to turn around and keep coming. And Saskatchewan being a prime example, right, where they lost a bunch of games early on that normally they wouldn't lose, and maybe they've turned the corner. How tight are the standings going to get, especially in the West, because you've got San Diego and Colorado have come out, and can they maintain the starts that they had? Vancouver coming to earth a little bit, right? But it's fascinating to see as we go into the second half, and I think the intensity just ramps up week by week.
Games have been awesome. Stamper, thanks so much. I appreciate this, man. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Thanks a lot, you too.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.